What's your most mind-blowing spiritual experience? Question mark. Just existing answers not necessary. I get it, every moment is a spiritual experience, and bliss is in the present. Now let's talk about that one time aliens talked to you telepathically.
Nothing supernatural, just woke up after drunk driving, again. After recently having a drunk driving accident. That was my fault, and swearing I would never do it again. I woke up in my bed in the middle of the night with an overwhelming feeling of love, warmth, and belonging. I pulled out my phone and wrote, "Quit alcohol forever. True love." I did. I've been sober for almost 9 years now. It most certainly felt like something otherworldly, because up to that point in my life love had been so rare for me. Still though, there were no spirits, no aliens, and no gods. It was very much of this world. God is love. I'm sorry if this doesn't make the cut for mind-blowing, but it changed my life, and I think it's worth sharing. Best wishes to all. I prayed for God to speak to me when I was 13 to confirm his existence, and what I would imagine to be God spoke back to me to my surprise. What was said was part of a Bible verse. I only remember the part where I am told, "I am with you." It was a very powerful but also scary experience, and obviously I could have hallucinated the entire experience, as the voice of God was exactly as described in the Bible. Powerful, like thunder and waterfalls. Nonetheless, I didn't actually expect to be spoken back to in an audible voice when praying, as that had never happened before and never happened since, so that really shook me. Perhaps God spoke to me, or perhaps I manifested and hallucinated the entire experience with LOA/faith. Who knows? It was mind-blowing to my 13-year-old self trying to explore spirituality nonetheless. Some years later, I started lucid dreaming and getting into sleep paralysis and experiencing the astral. Maybe that too was hallucinations, but I had really powerful experiences where I felt, sensed, heard, and saw dark and light spirits/beings. For a while I was struggling mentally, and I think I attracted some pretty bad spirits into my life because I kept being haunted by what I believed to be ghosts, demonic or dark creepy entities, etc. Like the Hat Man. Feeling scratches on my skin and waking up to finding them in my skin. Also had encounters with what I believed to be sex demons/incubus that tried to have sex with me. Also got stuck in sleep paralysis many times where demons would try to terrorize me. Which brings me to what I think is mind-blowing. Calling upon and praying on light beings/love/light and higher powers to protect me from the parasitic entities that were harassing me and trying to feed on my fire. And I started feeling a rush of love, safety, and protection, and the entities would go away and the sleep paralysis would end. Obviously, I could have just hallucinated all of this. I'm a strong believer in that we manifest what we have faith in. Demons, angels, light beings, even God. You believe in something and you give it power to manifest so that you experience it. Nowadays, I have a lot more faith in myself and I'm a lot more spiritually aware. I no longer let dark and depressing energies into my life, so I no longer manifest these types of experiences. I did have another mind-blowing experience, though, that I see as spiritual too. I was stuck at a train station in the middle of nowhere at 12:30 a.m. with no money and a prepaid flight to catch 6 a.m. in the morning. I had just lost the last train because I had gotten onto a wrong train earlier. I had no money to call a taxi. I was sitting in a train station waiting room pretty much about to break down in tears, knowing I was essentially screwed and wouldn't be able to get back home. I make a prayer to the universe/God for help, and literally only a few seconds later what to me felt like a miracle happened. One of the security guards at the train station starts talking to me and tell me they're closing the station and that I had to leave because they were closing the waiting area, and then I told him I had lost my last train. He asked me where I was going, and he kindly offered to drive me to the airport since he had just finished his shift. I was filled with relief and thanked him. He offered me a cigarette, we walked to his car which was parked nearby, and he drove to a gas station and filled up, where he also bought and offered me lots of drinks, food and candy bars. He even let me play my own music in the car. I don't think I've been more grateful for what felt like a miracle in my life. I'm also incredibly grateful for the kindness of this man who basically rescued me. This was one of very few instances where I felt like my prayers has been answered and manifested instantaneously.
Two stand out for me for being deeply profound, spiritual realizations. I had cancer when I was 5, so as I grew up and into my late teens, this childhood trauma had some obvious unconscious attachments. When I was around 20, I was big into doing mushrooms as spiritual experiences, smoke a lot of weed, and so on. I was also dirt poor, and money went to weed and shrooms over healthy food. My body was really deteriorating, in hindsight, from malnutrition. My right hip started to hurt a lot again, so much so that one day I had to basically crawl the last 70 feet home from work one day. I then had convinced myself that I still had cancer, but I wasn't told so I could live as normal of a life as could be done. I started going to the doctors again and getting all kinds of tests done, nothing. But I was not doing well physically. I stopped working for a month because being up walking around hurt so much. Being poor already and the mounting weight of no way to pay rent, having to ask for money was also stressing me out. At some point, laying in bed, I had a deep and profound revelation about what it means to be alive. For quite a while prior, I had thought I may end up in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and of course felt bad for myself for what that would mean. But then it hit me, I'm not my body. Regardless if I'm in a wheelchair or not, I am still having a conscious experience of life. Saying it here or out loud means nothing, as the understanding I felt at my deepest core can't really be out to words. It was a true spiritual revelation. From that point, the world took on more weight. I no longer saw a river downtown I walked by a million times, but I saw it as thick air. A boat goes by on the water, the waves move and part, the same as when a bus drives by on the road. Everything took on more meaning. My outer gestalt changed. I've had a few others throughout my life, as I do consider myself to be one who generally looks within. However, my second big spiritual revelation came around 6 to 7 years ago now, and I think my understanding of this situation enabled me to work off some lessons in this life that I was supposed to. I was in a relationship, not a super long one, but it was intense and fun, and I was definitely falling in love. One day she told me she could never love me, and that was it. Of course, I was thrust into despair, but this time, it set me on a very deep path to understanding thoughts, emotions, unconscious patterns of behavior throughout my life in relation to relationships and the type of women I tended to be in relationships with. One day at work, a few months later, I had an extremely deep and profound understanding. A deep and truly spiritual revelation. I understood, and by this mean I felt and knew at a level I can't explain, what it means to love. The purpose. I ran to the bathroom and started crying tears of happiness. I was a 36-year-old male at that time. It was like this release. This deep weight had been lifted, and I felt a clarity I didn't have before. I am quite certain that through this experience I had, on a deeply spiritual level, overcame lessons that had been put in front of me many times, more than likely in other incarnations. It's impossible for me to put into words what it felt like.
I got diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and that very night I had a dream where I was an adult at first on this pier. My friend had the idea to draw on the back of raffle tickets, and we did. I started drawing these figures I used to draw as a kid, and that's when I regressed into a childhood version of myself. This woman came up to my friend and told him everything about himself, and it was so accurate. I then screamed, "Do me, do me." And when she came up to me, she told me that I have a connection to the universe and am wide open to the universe. Then she hugged me, and while my head was on her chest, I felt this overwhelming sense of love and warmth coming from the inside of my body. From the chest spreading out to the rest of my body, and I felt so much warmth, belonging, and love. It was something I know I could never experience in my waking reality, but Jesus Christ, it was a beautiful experience. Any more than that, and I don't think I would have wanted to be alive just so I can feel that much more love after life. It was surreal and changed my outlook on everything in life, including the want to give everyone unconditional love.
This was the most profound for me because it was the first time that I experienced something beyond feeling and trusting. In high school, I was the drum major of the band. My predecessors had struggled, particularly with the drum line, and it caused them a lot of stress. If you've ever been in a marching band, you know how much power the drum line has. The conductor is the illusory figurehead. So we all became friends outside of school. Before our first football game, we all went to smoke weed. It was my first time. As soon as it hit me, I was removed from my body as an observer. Then I was hovering in space, looking over the Earth. A gigantic projector screen began to play images superimposed over it. The world is a projection. Suddenly, I was back in my body again, but time was moving in slow motion. We talked about something insignificant for a moment, then the guy driving turned the car on and made this big loop up and around onto the bridge towards the town. As soon as we crossed the bridge, we were once again under the bridge. I was like, "What?" And we had the same conversation as before. Then he drove the big loop and up over the bridge. Bam, back under the bridge again. I started tripping and telling them we were tripping in time, and they found my reaction hilarious. Slowly we began making progress further down the road, but still going back and doing sections of the drive, with the same conversation over and over. Groundhog Day style. Time is an illusion.
I was doing astral projection for about 5 years but always visited girlfriend house or the moon or just flying around. One day I decide to go under. As soon as I made that decision I found myself in a tunnel still in dirt, no luxurious work done. It was red like brick, nonetheless dirt. As I walked down the tunnel this being came round the corner toward me. This being had the body of a man and walk upright as a man but had what I refer to as crocodile face. He walked up to me and asked me for my password for being there. My answer was surprising even to me. I am the son of the Almighty God, I need no password to venture anywhere I wanted. He spit in his palm and rubbed my eyes and my forehead. Step aside and told me I can go wherever I please. From that day on I realize reptilian do exist. Mind-blowing experience. Until one day, which was about 2 years later, I went to the moon. As I walk I found an opening that took me inside the moon. There I can see a beam that runs from top to bottom and many layers going from the side toward the beam but not touching it. Also many different spaceships. Each layer had a different shape of spaceship. From afar I can see what looked like a hole but something spinning inside of it. I decided to take a closer look. I flew closer to that opening. It was wormhole and it sucked me in. I lost all control of my mental body as this thing had me traveling at a speed I never experienced before until it dropped me in a small room. Said room had no door, just the opening in which I came out of. The room was all white, with a white table, a bearded man seating at the table. He was dressed all in white, white hair, white brow, white beard. He looked up at me and said, "What are you doing here? You are not supposed to be here." At this point my heart is pounding hard. I feel like I'm losing my breath. So I made a conscious decision to get back. I found myself traveling back in that wormhole at the same speed. Then I hit the bed hard. Out of breath and tired like I'd been running a quarter mile. Since I only do astral projection very sparingly. But I know for a fact the moon is hollow, it's an alien base and there is such a thing as a judgment's room. Old man had a huge book open in front on him.
Last Thanksgiving I suffered a heart attack from taking some laced edibles, and it was the strangest yet most spiritual experience I'd ever had. I remember being in the precipice, the crest of the pain, and I was struggling to keep conscious. I had to manually remind myself to breathe, long before the attack came. At first I thought I was really high. But then I began fighting for air. Something felt like it kept dragging me down into the floor, as if it was reaching up and doing its damnedest to yank me through the ground. Each time it happened I lost my breath and begged for air. But as I walked that fine thread that seemed endless and immensely unbalanced, I began to feel a pain in my left arm. Just before it happened, I saw my dead father standing in my own living room. He looked at me and he had the most blankiest look I'd ever seen. His mouth moved but I couldn't hear him. I yelled, "Daddy, please, I can't hear you, don't go." All he said was, "Hold on." Not seconds later I had a pain shoot up my left arm, and my chest clenched as if my whole body was going to BK up inside of my own chest. I couldn't breathe, my body kept jolting, and the last thing I thought was, "This is clarity. Everything now is transparent. I'm dying. I'm dying." Not sure how long I was out, but I woke up on a gurney, and although I was definitely sore and it took a while for my chest to be able to expand fully again, I remember feeling like I was still dead. And now I know that the life I live now is just extra, and so I do my best to make it count. I'll never forget that strange, morbid clarity I felt. But I hope to never go through that again.
I couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. I went outside on my patio to smoke and pray. I prayed hard that I was tired and sick of my life. A lightning bolt hit close to me and I felt God touched me. This intense electric went through my body. I started laughing and crying. It was like my eyes were open for the first time. I felt like I knew everything and was aware of everyone in the universe. It was 1,000 times more powerful than LSD trip. I walked in pure love for a week. My ego was completely gone. My husband, who can see aurora and said mine was so bright it was blinding him. Everyone I came in contact was attracted to my light. I had a person I didn't know ask me to travel with them to Europe and I just laughed. People were so open to my light and love. I had a co-worker who was not feeling well and I gave her a massage. She started screaming, "What did you do to me?" She went to the ER. It was kind of crazy. She made some excuse she had a reaction to food, lol. In the end I was told I became manic because I was taking prednisone and wasn't sleeping. A couple years later it happened again with prednisone and I had hallucinations of God talking me. I thought I was pregnant from God. Again I felt like I knew everything and everyone in the universe. My ego was gone. My husband whispered to me, "It's happening again." I said no. It was so intense. Both experiences I still say God was trying to show me what my life would be like if I walked in pure love. I keep trying to get back to my authentic self and pure love. I definitely want my glow back, lol.
Sorry for the grammar, English is my second language. This is when I was in grade school, around 10 years old. It was a usual day going home from school around 6 p.m. I was going upstairs going to my room, but I feel cold tingling feeling that I had to turn and look on our hallway going to our basement. I saw a man elevated wearing a suit with soggy hands but no head. I stared it for like 10 seconds and then I realized I had to shook my head and re-stare it again to make sure it was real, and then it's still there after that I run TF out going to my room. Still wasn't convinced from what I saw. I didn't bother asking or telling anyone about it. Next day, no school. It was Saturday morning. Weirdly enough, my big brother who sleeps upstairs went down to my room as I was about to leave and asked in our language, "James, do you sense anything weird lately?" I think I just saw an old woman dressed in black gown in my room window. I was shocked, then I told him what I saw last night. Both of us were speechless. I still remember the image till this day. I'm 30 now and I hadn't experienced any of it again since.
Hey everybody! I'm new. This experience is mind-blowing. First, sober of 16 years, living on their principles. This happened over a period of 240 minutes. My spiritual experience is still happening. On the morning of the 8th, 3 weeks ago. It begins at 5:30 a.m. My cat was killed. It was the only thing I had an intimate connection. I'm homeless from October 20th of last year. I sleep on the porch of the most prominent church in Miami. Miami culture of being stupid killed him. This launched me into my spiritual experience. Easily identifiable. When the minister Jason found out, he came to console me. I tell him, I'm suffering. I know that in every Christian church in America, I can find the answer to my pain here. I say, I'm looking for one word to end it. You don't have to change one word. It's already there. This is where stuff starts freaky. Service begins at 8. The lights were off, not freaky. It's a traditional Episcopalian, large church. There's an acoustic issue with no power. I sat in the same spot. Looking for one word only for my suffering, I moved to the front row. I was also in a grief fog. I gotta hear that one word. The first sentence, provable, because I physical moved. This is the word that followed. Faith. It was connected to, faith without works is dead. That one phrase is the only intimate connection learned from AA. Everyone knows that is their thing. I heard it. I get up to cry. I walk out. After a 6 or 8 minute conversation with the security guard outside, I walk back in. I go to my first spot. Episcopalians have 2 clergy speaking. First sentence out of Jason's mouth was, his faith without works is dead. I need to know y'all want to hear this to keep going further. So much more.